The Wyoming wind offered no comfort. It only stole the warmth from Eliza Hayes' black mourning dress and dried the tears on her cheeks before they had a chance to fall. She stood over the fresh grave, a stark, angry mound of earth in the vast, unforgiving prairie. Beside her, her 10-year-old son, Thomas, tried to be brave, his small hands clenched. Her 8-year-old daughter, Sarah, hid her face in the folds of Eliza's skirt. Arthur was gone. Her husband, her anchor in this wild land, was gone. Silas Croft, the ranch foreman, cleared his throat. The sound was like gravel. It was a tragedy, Mrs. Hayes, a terrible tragedy. That bull was always mean, but for him to trample Arthur, well. He removed his hat, but his eyes, cold and grey as a winter sky, held no sympathy. Eliza nodded, unable to speak. The body had been too broken. It had all happened too fast. Croft continued, his voice dropping to a tone of feigned concern. This is no place for a woman from the East, Eliza. Not alone. You and the children. You can't manage this. He gestured to the small, loyal group of ranch hands, men Arthur had hired. They looked uncomfortable, their gazes fixed on their boots. I am offering you a fair price for the ranch, Croft said, pulling a folded paper from his coat. $500, enough to get you and the children back to Boston, back to civilization. Eliza stared at the paper. $500 for 2,000 acres, 1,000 head of cattle, and the cabin her husband had built with his own hands. It was an insult. I need time, Mr. Croft, she whispered. Croft's facade hardened just a fraction. Time is something the frontier doesn't offer, ma'am. Creditors will be circling. The bank in Cheyenne doesn't wait for grief. I'll be back in 3 days. You'll have the money in your hand and a wagon to take you to the station. He wasn't asking. He was telling her. The foreman gave the widow 3 days to leave, but as Eliza watched him mount his horse, a cold dread settled over her, deeper than her grief. Croft wasn't just an opportunist. He was a vulture, and he, like everyone else, believed she was a weak, broken woman ready to flee. He was wrong. What Silas Croft didn't know, what no one knew, was that Arthur Hayes was a meticulous man, and he had left something behind. He didn't know what his widow would find, buried beneath the floorboards of the very cabin he built. Tell me in the comments what city you're watching this story from. I'd love to know how far these exciting stories are reaching, and if you've ever experienced an inexplicable situation, share it with us. The first year in Wyoming had been the hardest of Eliza's life. She hated the dirt. It was a fine, pervasive dust that coated every surface, got into the food, the water, the lines of her skin. In Boston, she had known silk, paved streets, and polite conversation. Here she knew only wind, calloused hands, and a profound, crushing loneliness. Arthur, however, had thrived. He saw beauty in the endless rolling grasslands and the sharp snow-capped peaks of the Bighorn Mountains. It's a kingdom, Eliza, he'd said, spinning her around in front of their half-finished cabin. Our kingdom. A place where our children can grow strong, not soft. A place built by our own hands. He was a good man, a strong man. He trusted people. Perhaps she now realized he trusted them too much. Silas Croft had been the first man he'd hired. Croft knew the land, knew the cattle, and knew how to manage the half-dozen other hands they'd hired on. He's rough, Eliza, Arthur had admitted, but his heart is in the right place. He respects the work. But Eliza had never liked the way Croft watched her. His eyes lingered too long, a cold assessment that had nothing to do with respect. Then came the accident. Croft and 2 other men had brought Arthur's body back, slung over his own saddle. "A stampede, ma'am," Croft had announced, his face a mask of duty. "A freak thing. He was checking the south pasture fence. That old bull must have spooked the herd. He never had a chance." The grief was a fog, thick and suffocating. Eliza couldn't think. She couldn't breathe. She just signed the papers. The papers Croft put in front of her. The coroner's report, the initial settlement of ranch affairs. Now, sitting at the rough-hewn table in the silent cabin, the night of the funeral, the fog began to clear, and it was replaced by ice. 3 days. He had given her 3 days. Why? Why the rush? If he was truly concerned for her, he would offer to run the ranch in her name, to help her sell it for its true value. But $500. It wasn't a purchase. It was a theft. He had said creditors. What creditors? Arthur had been meticulous. He paid cash. He'd brought their savings from Boston and the small inheritance from his father. They were supposed to be secure. Eliza rose from the table. The wind howled, rattling the shutters. She felt like a prisoner in her own home. She had to know, she had to be sure. She went to Arthur's desk. It was small, made of oak, the one fine piece of furniture they'd hauled west. She looked for the ledgers. They were gone. The main drawer where Arthur kept the ranch's books was empty. She felt a jolt of panic. Had Croft already taken them? "Mama?" Sarah's voice was small from the bedroom. "The wind is loud." "It's all right, my love," Eliza called back, her voice shaking. "Go back to sleep. Mama is just tidying." She ran her hands frantically over the desk. Nothing. She pulled the drawer all the way out, hoping something had slipped behind it. Nothing. Defeated, she slumped against it. Her hand grazed the underside of the desktop, and she felt it. A small bump. Tape. Her heart hammered against her ribs. She crouched, tilting her head. Taped to the very bottom of the heavy desk, hidden from view unless you were on the floor, was a small brass key. A key for what? Arthur had no secrets, or so she had believed. She looked around the cabin. Her eyes landed on the hearth. A large flat stone sat before the fireplace. Arthur had set it himself. He'd been so proud of it. But one edge, it wasn't quite flush. She'd always assumed it was just rough carpentry. Now she looked at it with new eyes. She knelt, her fingers probing the edge. It was loose. With a grunt, she wedged her fingers beneath it. It was heavy, but it lifted. It was a false top. Beneath it was not dirt, but a dark, hollowed-out space. And inside that space sat a small metal strongbox. Eliza's hands trembled so fiercely she could barely fit the key into the lock. It clicked. The sound was deafening in the small, silent cabin. She lifted the heavy lid. It was not filled with money. It was not filled with gold. It was filled with paper and a small leather-bound book, a diary. She lifted the diary. It wasn't Arthur's daily planner. This was something else. His handwriting was hurried, tight. She opened to the first page. April 14th, 1883, 6 months ago. "I fear I have made a mistake in hiring Croft. Jed," one of the other hands, reported seeing Croft meeting with men from the Tanner operation. "Tanner has wanted this land for years. Croft told me they were just old acquaintances. I'm not so sure. He watches the spring. He is obsessed with the water." Eliza felt a chill. The spring. It was the only reliable water source for 10 miles. It's what made their ranch so valuable. She turned the page. May 1st. Croft is stealing. I am sure of it. I did my own count. We are short 20 head of calves. He's not branding them. He's moving them at night to the Tanner ranch. He is being paid, and Tanner gets to build his herd while weakening mine. Eliza's breath hitched. She had to sit down. Arthur had known. He had known he was being betrayed. She read on, her horror growing with every entry. Arthur had begun collecting evidence. He had followed Croft. He had documented the meetings, the missing cattle. And then she reached the final entry. The entry from 4 days ago, the day before he died, October 26th. I confronted him. I told him I had the proof. I told him I had the ledger from his secret sales. He did not deny it. He laughed. He said I was a fool from the East and that this land eats fools. He said he would fix it. He said the land would be his. He knows about the box, I am sure of it. But he does not know what is in it. I am moving it from the barn. I will hide it under the hearth tonight. He is riding out with me tomorrow to the south pasture. He insists. I will not show him I am afraid. But if I do not return, this is not an accident. It is murder, and the proof is in this box. Eliza let the diary fall into her lap. The room spun. Murder. It wasn't a bull. It was Croft. He had murdered her husband, and now he was coming back to steal her land and discard her like trash. She turned to the rest of the contents of the box. There was a ledger just as Arthur had written. It detailed every stolen calf, every secret sale. But there was something else. A folded, official-looking document. It was a deed. But it wasn't the deed to the ranch. It was a separate water rights deed, filed with the territorial office in Cheyenne. Arthur, with uncanny foresight, had filed the rights to the spring separately from the land. He had filed it not in his name, but in hers. Eliza Hayes. Croft could steal the ranch. He could forge a bill of sale. He could burn the cabin to the ground. But without her signature on this specific deed, the spring, the lifeblood of the entire valley, was worthless to him. He hadn't given her 3 days out of kindness. He had given her 3 days to sign the papers he'd put in front of her. Papers that likely included, hidden in the fine print, the transfer of those water rights. He didn't know she knew about them. She looked at the sleeping forms of her children. Arthur hadn't just left her a warning, he had left her a weapon. Day 1 of the 3 days dawned cold and gray. Eliza felt no grief. Grief was a luxury. What she felt was a cold, clarifying rage. She was no longer a victim. She was a strategist in a war she didn't ask for. Her new routine began. She had to play the part of the weak widow from the East. Her survival and her children's depended on it. She woke Tom and Sarah. "We are going to play a game," she said, her voice surprisingly steady. "It is a secret game. We must pretend to be very sad, and we must pretend to be packing. We cannot trust Mr. Croft." Tom, who had idolized his father, looked at her, his eyes suddenly old. "He hurt Papa, didn't he?" Eliza paused. "Yes, my love, he did, and we are going to make him pay." She spent the morning moving trunks. She packed clothes she had no intention of wearing, dishes she had no intention of moving. She did it all in plain view of the bunkhouse, where she knew Croft's men were watching. Jed, the ranch hand Arthur had mentioned in his diary, approached the cabin, his hat in his hands. He was an older man, his face a map of wrinkles. "Ma'am," he said, his voice low. "Mr. Croft, he ain't right. What he's offering, it's theft. Arthur was a good boss. If you mean to fight this, some of us will stand with you." Eliza looked into his eyes. She saw the same loyalty her husband had trusted. "I do mean to fight it, Jed," she said just as quietly. "But not with guns, not yet. I need you to do something for me. I need you to ride, not to town." That's what he'd expect. "I need you to ride to the McCoy ranch." The McCoys were their neighbors 40 miles east. They were good people. "Tell Mr. McCoy what is happening. Tell him Arthur was murdered for the water. Tell him Croft gave me 3 days. Tell him to send a rider to Cheyenne, to the U.S. Marshal, not the local sheriff, the Marshal." Jed's eyes widened. "Murder?" "Yes," Eliza said. "Now go, ride fast, and do not let Croft's men see you leave." Jed nodded, a grim resolve setting on his face. He slipped away toward the stables. Eliza went back to her charade. She wept. She packed. She looked broken. All the while, the strongbox and its terrible secrets were back beneath the hearthstone, the diary tucked into the bodice of her dress, its pages a shield against her heart. She was a Trojan horse, a grieving widow, hiding an army within her. Day 2 arrived. The pressure mounted. Eliza was outside hanging laundry she had just washed when Croft rode up. He was not alone. He had brought two of his most loyal men, thuggish figures who rarely spoke. "Good morning, Mrs. Hayes," Croft said, his smile thin. "I see you're making progress, that's wise." "It's difficult, Mr. Croft," Eliza said, forcing a sob. "So many memories." "Yes, yes," he said impatiently. He dismounted and walked onto the porch. "I've brought some papers from the bank, just formalities, to settle Arthur's accounts. You'll need to sign them before you leave." He held them out. Eliza wiped her hands on her apron and took them. She scanned the pages, pretending to be overwhelmed by the legal language, and there it was. On the third page, buried between clauses about livestock sale, was a single sentence: "And do hereby transfer all appurtenant rights, including any and all water rights filed under Deed 44B, to the new owner." Deed 44B, the very deed from the strongbox. It's all so confusing," she stammered, handing them back. "Can't this wait until tomorrow? When the wagon is here?" Croft's eyes narrowed. He was a predator, sensing hesitation. "It's better to get it done now, Mom. Clean breaks are best." He stepped past her into the cabin. "I'll just get a pen from Mr. Hayes's desk." Eliza's blood ran cold. He was in the cabin. He walked past the hearth. He was just feet away from the evidence that could hang him. It's messy in here, Mr. Croft," she said, following him. He ignored her, walking to the desk. He saw the empty main drawer. "You've been thorough." "I was looking for his will," she lied. Croft turned, his gaze sweeping the small room. His boot scuffed the floor. He stopped. He looked down. He was standing directly on the hearthstone. Eliza forgot to breathe. He nudged the stone with his toe. He saw what she had always seen, the slightly uneven edge. "Arthur was a fine carpenter," Croft mused, "but this stone is loose." He crouched down. "Dangerous. A spark could catch under there. Start a fire." He put his thick, calloused fingers on the edge of the stone. "No!" Eliza shouted. Croft froze. He looked up at her. The mask was gone. His eyes were flat, dead. "No?" he repeated, his voice a low growl. I mean," Eliza stammered, her mind racing. My daughter. She hides her dolls under there. It's a silly game. Please, don't disturb her things. It's all she has left." Croft stared at her for a long, terrible moment. He was weighing the lie. He looked at the bedroom door where Sarah was dutifully playing. He looked back at Eliza, this weak woman from the east, now trembling, her face pale with what he assumed was fear. He stood up. "Children's games," he spat, as if the very idea disgusted him. "This is what I mean. This is no place for dolls and games. This is a place for men." He walked to the door. "I'll be back tomorrow, Mrs. Hayes, at noon. Have the papers signed. Or I won't be bringing a wagon. I'll be bringing the bank, and they are far less generous than I am." He left. Eliza collapsed against the door, her legs giving way. She had bought herself one more day, but she knew with chilling certainty that tomorrow at noon this would end, one way or another. The morning of the third day. The sun rose in a brilliant, cloudless sky, mocking the darkness of Eliza's situation. Jed was not back. There was no sign of the marshal. Tom, her son, looked at her, his face grim. "Is the marshal coming, Mama?" "I don't know, Tom," she said honestly. She took Arthur's rifle from above the mantel. She checked the load. "But we will be ready." She had a plan. It was desperate. It was perhaps foolish, but it was all she had. She took the real deed, the water rights, and she hid it, along with the diary, back in the strongbox. But the other documents, the ledger of stolen cattle, the faked sales reports, she kept those out. Noon. As if summoned by the clock, Silas Croft appeared. He was not alone. He had his 2 men and they were carrying rifles, but they were not leading a wagon. They were leading a single, saddled horse. "Your time is up, Mrs. Hayes," he called from the yard. Eliza stepped out onto the porch. She was not holding the rifle, she was holding the ledger. "Where is the wagon, Mr. Croft?" she asked, her voice carrying on the still air. "Change of plans," he sneered. "The bank representative from Cheyenne, he was very interested in your debts. He foreclosed. The ranch is his, and he sold it to me. This morning." He held up a piece of paper. It was clearly a forgery. "All that's left," Croft said, "is for you to sign the water rights transfer. Then you can take your children and that horse and ride, or you can stay. The prairie is full of graves. 1 more, or 3, won't make a difference." His men fanned out, their rifles ready. "You are a fool, Mr. Croft," Eliza said, her voice ringing with a strength she didn't know she possessed. "What did you call me?" he bristled. "You think I've been sitting here crying? I've been waiting." She held up the ledger. "Arthur kept very good records. A copy of this is already on its way to Cheyenne, with a man who left 2 days ago." This was a bluff, but Croft didn't know that. He saw the evidence in her hands. "You're lying," he hissed. "Am I? You murdered my husband for this land. You think I will just give it to you?" Croft's face contorted in rage. He had miscalculated. He thought she was a sheep. She was a grizzly. "It doesn't matter," he growled. "Dead women can't testify." He raised his hand, a signal to his men. "I wouldn't," said a new voice. From the corner of the barn, Jed stepped out. He was not alone. Mr. McCoy, his 2 sons, and 3 other men from his ranch, all armed, all grim-faced, stepped out with him. They had Croft and his men surrounded. "You're late, Jed," Eliza said, her knees weak with relief. "Sorry, Mom," Jed said, leveling his rifle at Croft. "We had to wait for our guest." A tall man in a dark suit and a silver star stepped from behind the McCoys. "Silas Croft," the U.S. Marshal said, his voice booming. "You're under arrest for fraud, cattle rustling, and the murder of Arthur Hayes." Croft's face went white. He looked from the Marshal to Eliza. He saw the ledger in her hand. He saw the cold triumph in her eyes. He knew he was beaten. He made one last, desperate move. He lunged for Eliza, grabbing her, pulling her in front of him as a shield. "No one moves," he screamed, pressing a pistol to her head. "Or the widow dies." But he had underestimated the widow. Eliza drove her elbow back into his stomach with all her strength. Croft gasped, his grip loosening for just a second. It was all she needed. She dropped to the porch, screaming, "Tom, now!" Croft, confused, looked up. He saw no threat. But from the cabin window, Tom Hayes, 10 years old, swung the heavy cast-iron skillet his mother had told him to hold. It connected with the side of Croft's head with a sickening crack. The foreman crumpled unconscious, dropping his pistol. There was a stunned silence. Then the marshal calmly walked over, kicked the gun away, and pulled out his handcuffs. Winter came to the Wyoming frontier, blanketing the prairie in a deep, cleansing white. But the Hayes Ranch was not empty. Eliza Hayes did not go back to Boston. The trial in Cheyenne had been swift. The ledger, the diary, and the combined testimony of Jed and the McCoys had been enough. Croft and his 2 men were found guilty. They would never see the outside of a prison again. Eliza, now the sole owner of the ranch and its water, had a decision to make. She could sell. McCoy had made her a generous, honest offer. It was enough to live in comfort in Boston for the rest of her life. She stood on the porch, looking at the grave of her husband. She had come here hating this land. She had seen it as his dream, her prison. But in the past few months, she had seen its truth. It was a hard land. It was an honest land. It didn't suffer fools, as Arthur had written. But it rewarded strength. She had found a strength in herself she never knew existed. She had fought a war and won. To leave now felt like a betrayal, not just of Arthur, but of herself. Jed walked up, hat in hand. "Ma'am, the cattle are settled for the winter. Just wanted to, I wanted to say, it's been an honor, Mrs. Hayes. If you do decide to sell, I'll understand." Eliza turned to him. "I'm not selling, Jed. This is my home." She smiled, a real smile, one that reached her eyes. "But I will need a new foreman, someone I can trust, someone who respects the work. Are you interested in the position?" Jed's weathered face broke into a wide grin. "Yes, ma'am. I surely am." Eliza Hayes stayed. She learned to ride. She learned to rope. She learned to read the sky and the wind. She ran the ranch with Jed's help, and she ran it well. The weak widow from the east became a legend in the valley, a woman of iron who had faced down murder and theft and had not only survived, but had triumphed. The hearthstone was sealed, the strongbox empty, but the diary remained, a reminder of the price that had been paid. The cabin was no longer a prison. It was a fortress, and she was its queen. Eliza Hayes' story is a testament to the hidden resilience that lies within us all. The American frontier was not just a battle against the elements. It was a battle against the darkness in human hearts. She was given 3 days to surrender, but she used those 3 days to find her power. Her husband left her a secret, buried beneath the cabin, but it was she who forged it into a weapon, and she who built a future from the ashes of her grief. If you were moved by Eliza's journey from victim to victor, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to Old World Whispers for more stories of the men and women who truly built the West. What part of Eliza's story resonated with you the most? Was it her discovery of the diary or her final confrontation with Croft? Let us know in the comments below. Thank you for whacking.